All right, let's get right into it. We're about to peel back the pages of what might just be one of the most dangerous and terrifying books ever written, the Malleus Maleficarum. You might know it as the Hammer of Witches. See, when this was published way back in the 15th century, it wasn't just another book. Oh no, it became the official, state-sanctioned manual for how to hunt, prosecute, and ultimately execute people accused of being witches.
And this is how it starts. Right from the get-go, the book defines its subject not as some bit of folklore or local superstition, but as a type of criminal whose identity is based on the sheer scale of their evil. It sets this incredibly dark tone for a document that will leave absolutely no room for doubt and certainly none for mercy.
So let's get to the core of it. What was the big idea behind this book? What was its foundational argument?
Now, this is what made the Malleus so powerful. It completely changed the game. This wasn't about some old woman in a village putting a curse on her neighbor's cow. The Malleus argued that a witch was someone who had made a formal, binding pact with the devil himself. And that meant their crime wasn't just against another person. It was an act of profound heresy, a direct crime against God. And a crime like that, well, it demanded the most extreme response imaginable.
And this brings us to a really crucial point. The book's paranoia, its venom, its hatred, it had a very, very specific target.
So you have to ask, right? Why women? The authors of the Malleus had an incredibly detailed and deeply disturbing answer to that question. You see, for them, it wasn't an accident at all. It was completely central to their entire worldview. I mean, just listen to this. The book literally pulls from ancient sources to paint women as actual monsters. This quote compares a woman to the chimera, that mythical beast with a lion's head, a goat's body, and a serpent's tail. It's framing women as these inherently deceptive and dangerous creatures, beautiful on the outside but totally corrupt and deadly on the inside. And here's how they justified it theologically. The Malleus argues that women, just by their very nature, are creatures of extremes. They believed women lacked what they saw as male moderation. So a woman could be incredibly good, sure, but if she turned to evil, she would become supremely, unimaginably wicked, way more evil than any man could ever be.
This little story from the book is just chilling. It's presented almost like a dark joke, but it reveals this incredible depth of contempt. A woman's nature is framed as so fundamentally contrary, so unnatural, that even after she's died, her body would defy the laws of physics just to go against her husband. It's unbelievable.
So, with women firmly established as the primary vessel for evil, the book then goes on to provide this detailed, horrifying catalog of the specific crimes they were accused of. Now look, this isn't just a random list. It's basically a weaponization of fear. Every single anxiety of 15th century life, infant mortality, failing crops, impotence, sickness, heresy, all of it is transformed into a specific, prosecutable crime committed by a witch. It gave people a real, tangible enemy to blame for all the intangible horrors of their world. And this is what's so insidious. The Malleus doesn't just say, witches cause storms. No, it gives you a step-by-step guide, a recipe. This made the most fantastical ideas seem methodical, real, something a person could actually confess to doing when they were being interrogated.
And this was the ultimate act of sacrilege. To take the consecrated Eucharist, what they believed to be the literal body of Christ, and defile it like this, well, it was proof of an absolute rejection of God and a complete allegiance to the devil. This was exactly the kind of story that would inflame public hatred and justify pretty much any punishment.
So, once an accusation was made, what happened next? This is where the book lays out a terrifying and chillingly bureaucratic process for trying an accused witch.
The process starts with absolute and total humiliation. The goal here is to break the accused will, to dehumanize them right from the very beginning. The searching, the stripping, the shaving, these weren't just procedures. They were acts of psychological warfare.
And this is where the logic becomes an absolute nightmare, a perfect trap. If an accused woman stayed silent while being tortured, it wasn't seen as a sign of her innocence. Oh no, it was proof of her guilt. Her strength was seen as a demonic power, a gift of silence from the devil, which could only be broken by finding and removing the hidden charms she must be hiding on her body.
So you've got this impossible situation, right? Silence is proof of guilt, but you still need a confession. How do you force the issue? Well, the Malleus endorses a method for getting a so-called divine judgment.
The logic they use here is, well, it's just mind-bending. The authors actually justify trial by ordeal by comparing it to a duel. Their argument, if you can believe it, is that since society already allows duels, which could kill someone, then forcing a person to hold a red-hot iron, which is less likely to kill them, is somehow more reasonable and permissible way to prove a hidden truth. It's just astounding.
But here's the kicker. Here's the massive contradiction. The book just conveniently ignores that the church itself had already condemned these kinds of trials centuries earlier. This quote from Pope Stephen V makes it crystal clear. Judging hidden things is God's job, not man's. These trials were considered superstitious, an insult to God's authority.
And this leads us to the final and, frankly, the most important part of this whole story. How in the world did this terrifying system become official?
This is the key to its devastating power. This wasn't some fringe pamphlet being passed around in secret. The authors, Kramer and Springer, they took their manuscript to the intellectual heart of the Holy Roman Empire, the University of Cologne, and they asked for its official endorsement.
And they got it. This is the direct endorsement from the Dean of Theology himself. He says the book's theory is totally fine, but then he adds that its third part, the part with all the legal procedures for torture and execution, is to be put into actual practice. Those 4 words changed everything.
And that stamp of approval was it. That's what gave judges, princes, and priests all the legal and moral cover they needed. It basically said, this isn't murder, it's justice. This isn't paranoia, it's theology. That approbation is what turned the Malleus into an engine of persecution that roared across Europe for centuries.
And that's really the question we're left with, isn't it? The story of the Malleus Maleficarum is this chilling reminder that the most dangerous ideas are often not the ones that lurk in the shadows. They're the ones that are given a platform, endorsed by authority, and presented to the world as righteous, necessary truth.